This is a meeting of the New Bedford Community Preservation Committee. It's being called to order at 6:02 p.m. on June 22nd, 2021. This meeting is being held virtually in accordance with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures signed by Governor Baker on June 16th, 2021. We welcome you to today's meeting. My name is Jan DeSilva, and I'm the chair of the CPC. If you have a cell phone or other electronic device, please turn it off or set it to silence. And also please mute yourself unless you're going to be speaking. And I suggest that if you do want to speak, you raise your hand before so I can recognize you. Oh, that was the next sentence. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, you will be provided that opportunity at the appropriate time if you raise your hand. The members of the CPC are, and actually I'm going to call the roll. That's what I'm going to do. So, Ross Nunes.
Present.
Melissa Chester-Latendre.
Present.
Peter Blanchard.
Present.
Leona Fisher.
Where did Leona go? Oh.
Present.
Thank you. Arthur Glassman.
Here.
Chris Amaral. And Jody Siebert.
Here.
Okay, so absent is Chris Amaral, and we normally have 9 people on our committee, and we recently had a resignation. Paula Robinson Deere recently resigned from the City of New Bedford Park Board, so we will be looking to have someone fill her vacancy from the Park Board. And I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Paula for her service to the CPC. And she's definitely going to be missed by all of us because she was a great addition to the committee and always had a lot of good thoughts about all the applications and asked a lot of great questions. So we're definitely going to miss her. So next on the agenda is approval of the May 25th, 2021 minutes. Has everybody read the minutes? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion made by Arthur Glassman, seconded by Leona Fisher. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. Next on the agenda is the West Beach Bathhouse extension. This was submitted by Mary Raposa of the City of New Bedford Parks, Recreation, and Beaches. They would like an extension until July 31st, 2021. And here's the extension letter, just putting it up on the screen for everyone to look at. Are there any comments? Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the extension.
Motion to approve the extension.
Second.
Motion made by Ross Nunes, seconded by Arthur Glassman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, next. Oh, thank goodness. Oops. Wrong thing. Next, we are going to open the public hearing. I need a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Motion to open the public hearing made by Arthur Glassman, seconded by Peter Blanchard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the hearing is open. And as I said, I'm Jan DeSilva. I'm chair of the Community Preservation Committee. And this is our annual meeting where we review the FY22 Community Preservation Act plan draft. So it gives the public the opportunity to see what kinds of things we are looking for applications and how we are using CPA funds in the city. I'm going to be turning the meeting over to Ms. Jessica Bailey, who is our coordinator, and she will take us on from here.
Hi, everybody. Give me 1 second to get this I wanted to do. Great. So thank you all for coming tonight. Jan will be watching the chat, so if everybody could mute themselves, that would be fantastic. And Jan will be watching the chat if you have any questions. So just a quick agenda. We're talking about tonight the FY22 plan. And since most of you are familiar with CPA, I'm just going to give a brief overview because we're also recording this for New Bedford Cable Access and it'll be broadcast. So I want to make sure everybody who may be watching it also understands CPA and in our community. So back in 2014, New Bedford voters approved CPA. And CPA is a statewide law, and about 100, I think it's now 187 communities, new community joined this earlier this month, participate in CPA. Back in, like I said, in 2014, the voters approved it and approved a 1.5% surcharge. The CPA is funded with two different funding sources versus the surcharge as well as the statewide fund. The trust fund match this past year was 28.6%. The Department of Revenue is actually anticipating that we will have just over a 32% match for FY22, which is a fantastic jump from a couple of years ago when we were below 20%. This is an example of the surcharge calculation and how the first 100,000 of residential property is always exempt. It's one of the exemptions. The other is if you're a low income or you would qualify for low income or senior low income housing. But this is just an example of the amount that a typical homeowner would pay towards CPA. This year, it's about a $35 per year surcharge, which actually translates into quite the impact. We've given out over the last 4 funding cycles just shy of $6.9 million. You can see on the left of this chart. And the reported leverage funds to date totals just over 6.9 million. So it's almost a dollar for dollar match. So it's one of the beauties of CPA is that you're able to use, or an organization is able to use CPA funding for matching a federal grant, state grant, other local funds, other funding sources that require a match, or leverage it where it shows local support for a particular project. CPA money can fill that need. So the purpose of tonight is we're getting together, we've all met the committee, and the committee has must have these 5 representatives from the boards and commissions, as well as we've elected to have a 9-member committee. 4 of our members are from the general public who are appointed by the mayor. The other 5 represent the boards and commissions that really represent the categories of CPA: historic resources, open space and recreation, and affordable housing. And as Jan said, Paula Robinson-Deere has stepped down from the park board, so has now had to step down from the CPC. We hope that we'll have someone who'll be filling those shoes soon. So tonight's purpose is to review the plan. The FY22 plan is part of the responsibilities of the committee. The committee needs to assess the preservation needs every year, and that is done by going back to those boards and commissions that are part of our committee, and also holding this annual public hearing. From this, we develop and maintain the community preservation plan, and that establishes the priorities. And those priorities guide the CPC in reviewing the applications that they'll receive in the fall. It also provides the public with the process of how to apply, as well as the way that all of the applications are reviewed and scored, and also gives the city council the information that they need to see how these recommendations tie back to the plan and the needs within our community. In addition, the CPC prepares the annual budget and also makes those project recommendations from the annual funding cycle to the city council. Just a quick overview. This is a fantastic use table. And on the left, you'll see what I call the action words. And then across the top, you'll see the categories. And that just shows how projects could be deemed eligible. If they're creating open space, then yes, it'd be eligible. But if it's creating a historic resource, no, it wouldn't be eligible. And that's something to keep in mind as you're thinking about the plan and potential projects that you are looking to see the city do, or maybe a private organization or nonprofit. But that also guides the CPC in terms of what they can even consider. So the needs assessment part of this is tonight is looking at the needs of the community and getting the input from the community. CPA does mandate that we have to create this plan and review it every single year. And it does a number of things. It allows for transparency within the process. It gives clear criteria that everyone can understand, both the CPC, the city council, and the general public. It establishes those processes and the timelines. It gives you the application forms, which are of course important. But it also provides those goals and those priorities that, as I said, go back to where the CPC looks back and says, how does this particular application rank or against our goals and priorities? And it just provides an overall understanding of the needs and priorities within our community based on the information gathered from the other boards and commissions, the city's master plan, and other plans that have been gone through another public process themselves. I'm going to just touch on the categories because I think it's important for everyone to understand what can be done with those funds as you're looking at the plan and you're thinking about the goals and the priorities. CPA funds for open space, it's probably out of the there's 3 categories, but open space and recreation share a category, but they split. This one, we've only had one project in the 4 years, and that was the Buzzards Bay Coalition project at the Cushnet Sawmill, because we really don't have a lot of open space in New Bedford, obviously. But that particular project has a permanent deed restriction because it was acquired with CPA funding, and that's part of the legislation. Open space has a variety of is a very broad definition, as you can see here. It tag teams with the recreation piece of CPA category. And for recreation, it has to be outdoor, passive, or active recreation. It cannot be a gym or a stadium or anything indoors. It's been interpreted to mean that various projects over the past 20 years have been interpreted to mean that it has to be outdoor recreation. And CPA over the last 4 years has funded a number of projects across the city, including the Sergeant Gannon Memorial Playground at Campbell School, the Brookline Park new basketball courts, the Dyes Field renovation, Hazelwood Park's master plan completion, Buttonwood Park's new lighting at Diamond One. And that all is used to rehabilitate an existing facility, or in the case of the basketball courts, it was creating an existing facility. It relocated in the park. So normally when we're together and in person, these are poster boards, and all of this information is located on the webpage. On the left, you'll see the definitions, the allowable use table, and on the right is the goals and priorities. These are sent to each of the applicable boards and commissions. In this case, it's sent to the Conservation Commission as well as Parks and the Park Board, so that they can review them and make sure that what their goals and priorities are, which are the city goals and priorities, are represented within this plan, because things do change and we do make edits every year. But these are used by the CPC to review the applications against, say, how does this fit into the goals and priorities? Now, not every one of these goals and priorities that are listed on these particular slides, and there's 2 more, are eligible for CPA funding, but to take them out, it would not give you the whole picture of what the goals and priorities are for that piece of the city's plan. So they are in there, even though they may not be eligible. Now, historic resources is our #1 category because we are such an historic city. That's another beautiful thing about CPA, is that each community, by creating this plan, we're creating what our goals and priorities are. And with funding, we are able to determine what our needs are. In our community, it's historic resources, it's recreation, then community housing, and then open space. But in other communities, such as on the Cape and the Islands, or maybe up near Boston, it's a lot of affordable housing or community housing and a lot of open space protection for obvious reasons. But that's one thing about CPA, is that it allows the community to determine that, and that's what this plan is a determination of what the goals are for this coming fiscal year. So historic resources can be a number of things, anywhere from the vessel, like the schooner Ernestina, which was funded in the first year, to buildings, such as the Whaling Museum, the Seamen's Bethel, the Verdian Veterans Memorial Hall, the Sergeant Carney House, to artifacts such as the William Allen wall paintings that just received funding in the last FY21, well, actually this FY21 round. But the thing every resource has to have is either has to be listed on that state register of historic places, or it has to be determined by the local historical commission to be significant in some way to the city. And that's a process that if you have a project that, getting that determination sooner rather than later is best. And all of these projects have to comply, if they're a rehab project, with the U.S. Secretary of the Interior standards. And in most cases, either a permanent or a 30-year deed restriction will be placed. And that protects the public investment in the community. And I'm sorry, public investment in the project by the community. So historic resources, as I said, this is another slide where you're going through, and if we were in person, you could walk around and see all the different priorities, and we could brainstorm and we would take that information. But as I said, these all are on the CBC's webpage on the city website. But again, the goals and priorities that have been identified, and most, but not all, are eligible for CPA funding. And then lastly is community housing. And community housing can be acquisition, rehab, or support. And it could be either we acquire the property using CPA funds, or it's being created. And then how it's defined, low to moderate income housing or low to moderate senior housing. And we've had a number of projects over the last couple of years. Most significantly, the Temple Landing 2, which will be senior ADA accessible housing, 117 Union Bobby Dick, which will be a mixed use and affordable housing, as well as the Capitol Theater project in the North End and the Hillman Street Firehouse. So there's been a number of projects that are going to create a new affordable housing that fill the needs that have been identified in our community. And once again, the slide that talks about the community housing and goals. And like I said, all of this is on the website, so you can take a look at it. And then, as Jan said, the public comments will be accepted until July 9th, and they'll be incorporated into the plan. So we want to hear from you. And the public input can be sent to the CPA at newbedford-ma.gov by July 9th, and it'll be incorporated into the plan, because our next steps are incorporating this public input so that we can create a plan. The CPC will then review and approve in July, which then sets in motion the FY22 process. Tentatively right now, September 9th is when the technical workshop will take place, and that will be the beginning of the eligibility determination step 1 of the process. And for those of you who aren't familiar, what we do is, because of the process and the fact that the application is not lengthy but requires some work, we like to make sure that the project that's being submitted actually is eligible under CPA funding guidelines. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to receive funding. It's just that, yes, you're eligible based on the CPA legislation. This project would be eligible. Those that are determined to be eligible are welcome to and are invited to submit a full application. And that application is usually due mid-November. And then in January, we do the public presentations. All the applicants are invited to do that. Then the CPC gathers usually 2 to 3 meetings worth to review and to come up with the recommendations that are then submitted typically early March to the City Council. They're received by City Council, sent to Finance Committee for review, discussion and vote, and then sent back to City Council for the full vote. This year, we were very fortunate in that nothing happened and everything went according to plan. And on April 8th, the City Council approved all the FY21 recommendations. So like I said, tonight's meeting is about gathering the information to create this next plan that guides the CPC in identifying the priorities and reviewing the applications and scoring the applications. Everything is on the website, so you can go back and take a look at it. And if you have an idea for a project, or if you have a question about something within the plan, please feel free to email the CPA at newbedford.ma.gov. I do want to just show you, if my computer will let me. Why is it not opening? So this is the CPC's plan, webpage on the website. If you go to the drop down, you can find us right there at the Community Preservation Committee. And then drop down here gives all the information about CPC and the CPA. But the hearing information is right on our homepage. The annual report draft, which is 77 pages, is available here. It's a PDF that you can open and review. It also includes every CPA plan is the next year's fiscal plan, and then the previous year's annual report. So we're always like a year behind. Oh no, actually that's a typo, excuse me. So I'll go back and fix that. But the annual report for FY22 is included in that plan. And then all the other plans are located here at the bottom. So if you want to see what has been incorporated into other plans as well. And that's all I have to share. It's a little difficult because we're not in person, but if you have any thoughts or if you have any questions, either myself or Jan or any of the other members can just discuss them with you before we move forward with the meeting. So.
Yes, please unmute if you have a question.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes, please do that.
Or type it into the chat box.
Exactly. Either one. You're welcome, Nick. So it's a little difficult, like I said, because we're not in person, but and we usually do have all the poster boards up, and so you can kind of chat about projects that we've done and what the goals are and answer questions. But we're happy to take it if anybody has any questions or has any suggestions about the report. We're happy to take them. And Jan, have any thoughts?
No. I'm like, I don't want to call people out. That's why I'm like,
No. But if anybody has any thoughts or questions.
I mean, this happens every year, Jessica. Remember,
Oh, I know.
nobody.
Yeah. And then people go back and think about it because it is a lot of information. I live it every day, so I'm used to it. But for everyone else, it's a lot of information to take in and sort of think about what could be part. And in past years, a number of people have been at the meetings and said, they'd love to see a walking path at Brooklawn Park, similar to what is at Buttonwood Park. Let's see, some work that they wanted to see done at one of the beaches. And so that was incorporated into the plan. And I also provided to the appropriate department just to say, this is the feedback we received, to let them know. Sometimes it's a project they're already working on behind the scenes, and sometimes it's a new idea for them. So I do share it just in case it's not, in case it's a new idea.
I think I would like to say one thing. A lot of people look at us and wonder why we fund the things we fund. But I will say that is actually in response to the community. So this is really a community generated project source. We don't come up with the ideas for the projects. They have to come from the community. So there have been several projects I've been interested in having people fund, but nobody wants to form an organization or nobody wants to put forward the application. We don't decide who applies. We don't decide who applies. We don't decide anything like that. That comes strictly from the community. So if you're interested in an idea and you want to see it funded, we ask that you bring it to us. You don't take it to the city council. You don't take it to the mayor's office. You actually have to bring it to us yourself. Right. There's no one else who's going to do this work but the community. That's why it's a Community Preservation Act. And I just want to bring that up because a lot of people say, well, why aren't they doing this? And why aren't they doing that? And why can't we get this done? Well, because it's not us, it's everyone. And you guys are just as important part of the equation as we are in giving out the money. You know, we can't have A plus B equals C if we're missing the A part. So
Right.
I just want to make sure that everyone who's there understands that.
And to just follow up with that, it's also that the CPC is very cognizant of making sure the money is spent across all the wards, but there are times when they don't receive applications in certain wards. And there's only so much outreach that the CPC can do. But, you know, certainly if there's a project that's out there, and even if it's an idea, you know, I'm happy to discuss CPA with anybody and to provide them with any guidance that I can. Maybe connect them with an organization that might be doing work in that particular neighborhood or ward, so that you know, maybe that's the connection, and that you don't have to take the idea to the finish line, but you bring the idea before the people who could apply for CPA funding, and to have that become a reality within either your neighborhood or your ward. But it is, as Jan said, the CPC can only review the applications that are provided to them. They can't make the applications appear before them. So, you know, we always encourage, and over the summer is a great time to reach out and discuss any projects with me or any of the committee members. Because if they can't answer the question, they will definitely, you know, kick it up to me, and that way you can hit the ground running in September when the application process begins, when the cycle opens on potentially September 9th. Once we should have the timeline, once the CPC reviews the FY22 plan, that'll have the timeline with all the set deadlines for the application cycle. So that's it. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to add from the committee, or if anybody has any questions.
There's a
Like I
question.
said, oh, I think Lisa's waving her hand. Yes. Is that a question, Lisa? You can unmute yourself.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hi, Lisa Lutz. Nice to hear your presentation. Thank you for that. My question is just out of curiosity. Everything you talked about was planning for the application. I was just curious that once the project did get approved, does the committee ever hear of how the results of how the projects turned out, like a before and after?
Yes.
Jan, do you want to answer that? Do you want me to?
Well, part of
Yes,
the
it's me. Okay.
The application process means you submit an application, and once you receive the funding, you have to sign a kind of like a memorandum of understanding with the CPA. And as part of that memorandum and part of that understanding, you have to complete a project report at the end where you describe the project and submit some photos, and you give us a budget about how it is. And Jessica actually does site inspections before every project is closed out. We also have a sign that we ask each applicant to place at their project, so the community knows that it was funded in part with CPA funding. I think at this point we've had definitely more than 50 projects throughout the city.
68.
68
I think
projects.
it's 68 now. 17, 34, that's 45 and 18. Yeah, 63, I'm sorry, 63 projects that have been funded. Not all separate projects. Some of them have had multiple years of funding. But as Jan said, they do have to do a project closeout report that they submit with their final disbursement request. And it is in the works that we'd like to put up some of the stories on the web page, but I need to determine with MIS if I can add another part to the drop down so that we can add that. But the plan will show, the old plans will show you the projects that were funded, so you can always see what has received funding. And then, you know, as you drive by, like, you know, Buttonwood or the First Baptist Church or the Wheeling Museum or the Siemens Bethel, you'll see the work that was done. Sometimes it's hidden, you know, because historic preservation isn't always so obvious, but
So some of our hidden projects are actually the city clerk starting the digitization process of old city records. We are also funding the restoration of a frame and 2 paintings at the library. We're also participating in the project that Spinner Publications is doing of restoring negatives and photos. So those are things that aren't really out in the public, but they're there, they're being worked on. So yeah, you don't see everything that we fund.
yeah, and then there's a public component. So if, for example, for the Spinner publication, they are going to be uploading those to a publicly accessible website. I can't remember off the top of my head which one they're using, so that the public can see all these images. The William Allen Wall paintings will be hung in the library for everyone to be able to come and see. The city clerk records, obviously, you know, you'd have to go into the city clerk, but they're publicly accessible. So there has to be a public benefit and a public access for all the projects that take place. So, but yeah, does anybody else have any questions or? So July 9th. So Jan?
Oh, someone just came in. Oh, Ann.
Yep. Oh, Ann.
So as I'm going to repeat this again, the public comment period on the plan ends July 9th. So you can always email your comments, send them to Jessica, take them to the planning office, drop them off. We appreciate getting comments from anyone in the public. If you want, this meeting is being recorded, so you can also invite people to go to our website and look at the recording. You can check out the plan yourself on our website. So we hope that you have the opportunity to comment on it. And if there's no more questions, I'm trying to see if there's any more questions, but there aren't. So at this point, I think I would like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to close the public hearing made by Ross Noon, seconded by Melissa Chester-Latendre. Couldn't see you, you're behind my
Yes.
chat box. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. And I guess thank you all for coming to the meeting. And if you have any questions, please be sure to ask. Oh, Jessica?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's no other business. Sorry. I know.
I need another motion. Okay, so a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn the meeting made by Ross Noon, seconded by Peter Blanchard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, now I can say the last two. So thank you for coming. And as I was saying, you know, if you have any questions, you can always contact Jessica, or if you see me around the city, I work at the National Park, you can always ask me questions too. I'm happy to answer them about CPA. Thank you for coming.